Welcome back to a walk through the tarot. Today the Fool meets card 4, the Emperor. He sat on a stone throne in an arid landscape where little grows and the air is silent. In the previous video, the Fool met the Empress. She appeared kind and welcoming, but her natural beauty has now been left far behind. The Emperor is the archetypal father, and his world is one of patriarchal control. There's little sign of welcome, but our Fool is learning to wait and see what might happen next. We're going to look at the background to this card, explore its symbolism, and discover some of the messages the Emperor has for the Fool as he takes the next step on his journey. In 15th century Italy, early tarot showed the emperors holding globes and sceptres to demonstrate their authority and status. These men were rulers and leaders with great wealth and power, alongside the skills and experience of conflict and warfare. Both hand-painted commission decks and the mass-printed paper images, which were cut out and stuck onto thin slices of wood, showed similar qualities of strength and control. As tarot began to move across Europe, the Emperor card remained much the same. It showed a throne, sceptre, crown, and a shield with the sign of an eagle, a symbol of the divine right to rule. In the 18th century, a new set of meanings began to appear. French scholar and Freemason Antoine de Gébelin claimed tarot originated in ancient Egypt and contained secret knowledge deriving from Thoth, their god of mystical wisdom and magic. With no evidence to support his claims, de Gébelin changed the card's name from emperor to king and said it represented an older, more spiritual knowledge and authority. Influenced by the ideas of de Gébelin, Jean-Baptiste Alliette designed a tarot for divination, where the emperor became support and protection. Alliette, or Estelier, as he called himself, emphasised the shift from dominance in the material world to help and guidance in more esoteric realms. The emperor had retained intellectual control, and his power remained absolute, but his domain had shifted to more spiritual dimensions. A century later, French occultist Eliphas Levi connected the 22 cards of the major arcana to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. He wasn't the first. Others, including de Gébelin, had done the same, but Levi often gets the credit, maybe because he also made a connection with the 22 paths on the Kabbalistic tree of life, a Jewish mystical system for understanding the nature of the universe. Levi suggested the emperor's power could be aligned with that of the alchemist who sought to transform plain metal into gold, a metaphor for the spiritual journey through life. The emperor has come a long way from his original identity as ruler over land and citizens. He was now the epitome of a divine and more esoteric form of masculinity. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Arthur Waite and Pamela Colman Smith tarot incorporated teachings from the Hermetical Order of the Golden Dawn, and these included astrology. The Emperor was associated with Aries, a cardinal fire sign representing male energy. The planet for Aries is Mars, also the name for the Roman god of war, who was primarily connected to domination and conflict. Waite added the ram's heads and replaced the sceptre with an Egyptian ankh. The emperor now wore armour beneath his robes and sat in front of a bare and rocky landscape. There's no avoiding the authority spilling out from this card, so let's take a closer look at the symbols on the Waite-Coleman-Smith version. The emperor's world is arid and dry. Nothing grows. The dominant colours are red and rust, the colours of death in autumn. He sits up high, a position of control where he can see everything that's happening. Down in the valley bottom there's a river, but it's narrow and running dry. There's little sign of his counterpart, the Empress, in this card. Everything about the Emperor on the surface suggests the epitome of patriarchal and physical control. The heavy stone throne is imposing. Set on a dais to enhance its elevation, the throne looks hard and unflexible, with little indication of comfort. The throne of the Empress was softened with cushions and drapes, but this throne is almost as intimidating as the Emperor himself. He is mature, as shown with his white hair and long beard. He wears robes of purple and red, expensive colours historically reserved for emperors and royalty. The top of his crown is closed rather than open, and it's said a closed crown indicates the wearer is shut off from higher energy forces. In earlier cards, the emperor had a shield with a golden eagle, a sign of authority since the days of the Roman Empire. The shield is gone, but beneath his clothes he's wearing full armour. This emperor has experience of war and is constantly prepared for future attack. The number of the emperor is 4, and this represents stability, reliability, and the material world. There are 4 elements of earth, fire, air, and water, while the cardinal directions are north, east, south, and west. All of these connect to the universal structure of a world which can now be seen on different levels, both material and non-material. The back and arms of the throne are decorated with ram skulls. These were incorporated in the Waite-Coleman-Smith design to reinforce the French occultist associations between the tarot and ancient Egypt. The ram was a traditional symbol of strength for Ramesses II, one of the most powerful of Egyptian pharaohs. The sceptre is topped with a loop, similar to the Egyptian ankh, long associated with control over death and mortality. The emperor has remained austere, rigid and controlled. In the material world he can never rest or relax his guard, so what messages does his duality have for our fool? The emperor traditionally represents leadership and authority. He is structure and stability and is telling our fool he needs to take control of his life, to exercise discipline, strategy and logic. The emperor is an example of a father archetype. He appears remote, stern and unsmiling, the ultimate personification of wealth, power, status and authority. But nothing comes from nothing, and the emperor's achievements are sustained through hard work and effort. Leadership requires determination and resilience, as well as a strong will, personal ambition and the competent management of different life situations. Symbolising strength and power combined, the emperor is showing the fool if he wants to achieve in the world, he must be prepared to do the work. Difficult decisions may needs be negotiated and essential sacrifices made. He must learn when to move or stay still, to speak or be silent. As the fool stares at the emperor, he realises all we see of other people is their surface identity. We have no idea what they might be feeling inside or the effort it's taken to get to the present moment. Too often we make judgments based on physical identity alone. The emperor might look like success, but the fool remembers how the magician taught him all actions have consequences. There's an absence of joy or laughter in this card. The bare landscape suggests a loss of connection with nature. The Empress has told the fool about the risks of neglecting what we need to survive, and now the fool can see what imbalance can look like. In a world which celebrates material possessions and where wealth and recognition are indicative of success, it's easy to get caught in the moment. The public persona becomes what other people expect, while our private lives are unrecognised. When unbalanced, the Emperor archetype manifests as a tyrant, becoming rigid, overly controlling, exclusionary and sometimes unwanted. Fame and fortune that rests on what we do and how we look, rather than reflecting who we really are on the inside, is ultimately hollow. The primary lesson from the Emperor card is the need for balance between achieving ambitions and keeping oneself authentically grounded. The Fool is being reminded he has spiritual dimensions as well as physical ones, but it's early days. There's still a lot for our Fool to learn about himself and the world around him, and this is the purpose of his walk through the tarot. He's only halfway through the first row of cards, And the next archetype the Fool will meet is the Hierophant. At first glance, it appears overtly religious, but the Hierophant is a generic name for those who interpret the sacred mysteries, and this card has many layers of meaning. So join us as we take the next step on a walk through the tarot.